Music is a very emotional thing for people, right? Their heart is so tied to it. And even if you're not a performer or an aspiring artist yourself, the music that you love, right? I've looked at all the data for this stuff. Like, people have these like flashbulb life moments that they can attribute the music they were listening to at that time. It's amazing, right?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Future Proof Podcast. Thanks for joining. We have Joel here. He's going to talk a little bit of what he does and what kind of company he's just started with his brother. And Joel, I'll let you take it from there.
Great. Thank you, Alex. My name is Joel Cassady. I am a member of a band called Walk Off the Earth that for the past 13 years has been doing things at a certain international level. Like, we've been doing it full time for the last 13 years, thanks to grinding it out on YouTube in the early days and being part of the kind of first wave of creators on YouTube to really tap that and use that to leverage and build a following away from the previous set of gatekeepers, the major labels and all that sort of stuff, and sort of having a chance to live my dream and have my career be what it has been. That has allowed me to kind of like want to go even further. And in addition to being able to still do all that awesome stuff with my music career these days, I'm a lifelong tech junkie. Despite being non-technical, I've just been obsessed with tech forever. And my brother happens to be very technical, and he spent a career last 15 years down in Silicon Valley doing startups and recently moved home. And that, in addition to, I feel like this sort of era of AI tools and the availability of some of this stuff, and essentially the opportunity for people with great ideas, in addition to knowing someone like my brother who can actually execute on the technical side, have never had a better chance to build something amazing. So I think I'm coming from a unique perspective here. Our company is called Intelligent Objects. We're building a music agent, a first of its kind music agent called Mira, musically intuitive real-time assistant that essentially, the idea is Mira can help anyone, regardless of their age, musical skill level, background, whatever. Mira can help anyone go on the journey of music that they want to in a way that's going to be more intuitive, more sort of recursive and dynamically adjusting in real time than ever before. That's the mission we're on right now, and it's been a grind. We've been kind of building the whole year and slowly and surely kind of crossing milestones and getting to a pretty exciting point now as we kind of start to identify late summer or early fall as an actual public release time. So yeah, I guess that's the two kind of halves to me, is like there's the pro musician side, and then there's the kind of lifelong tech junkie side that for the first time ever right now has a chance to build something amazing with my brother, and we're trying to make the absolute most of that.
Yeah, it's nice having somebody that, I'm like you. I'm obsessed with technology. Was a pretty early adopter basically and everything. I mean, I'm in that generation of that, I was around before cell phones and smartphones and things like that too. So it's like, I've seen all of that come around, but I've just never been able to manipulate it or like do anything with it. So yeah, it's awesome having that, having your brother that'll help you. So now I know that one of the really cool features, and I think I might be even just jumping ahead of it, but it's just on the top of my head right now. You mentioned that Mira can help anyone that doesn't really know a lot about music, or even if they do know a lot about music, kind of help them grow in their like musical capabilities. But I thought one of the most interesting things that you guys were kind of adapting is maybe a way to integrate that with like certain already made, instruments or things like that. Is that something that you guys are kind of looking to do?
Big time, big time. Yeah, a lot of the time when I tell musicians about this, in addition to, we're currently building for iOS, idea there being that when we built our MVP, we used a Raspberry Pi and a separate microphone and a separate speaker and a separate MIDI keyboard, right? Just to kind of make sure that we could actually pull this off. And that's great for those that have the gear, but, trying to meet people where they are and trying to target a more sort of gen pop consumer with this, it's all there with the iPhone, right? So we think, just based on our market research, trying to cast that widest net possible out the gates, we're going to go with iPhone first. But if we're able to achieve product market fit with that, and all the signs are saying that this is working, very quickly after that, we'll be moving into creating integrations that can allow, sort of essentially via MCP, allow Mira to talk to a DAW like Logic Pro or Pro Tools or Ableton on the software side. So you can have that co-pilot experience with something that can actually speak the language of music right inside your DAW. So talking about ideas, Mira already having a good idea based on how much you've worked together of your wants and needs. And if you're working on a new song or a chord progression, she's going to have suggestions for you that are directly based on past interactions and certain things that she's been able to glean and hold on to based on your preferences. So it's one thing in the DAW realm, it's another thing in the musical hardware realm. So a big goal of ours long term is actually to work with existing hardware manufacturers to create our own instruments that are sort of our perfect sort of encapsulation of this sort of mix of hardware and software. But in the lead up to that, we want to, and already are, I can't say too much, but approach existing giants in the music hardware space and actually say, listen, we have something here that we can install proprietarily across your entire hardware class so that no one has to ever use an instruction manual ever again. What's the extent of how to use this? Press the button and talk in whatever way your natural language is, and our agent is going to meet you there. And yes, sure, there's a lot of agents out there. There's a great general purpose agent that is ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode or Gemini Voice Mode or Grok Voice Mode. If you ask any one of those to identify the pitch or the melody you just sung to it, or ask you to play some chords, or play you a song, essentially with help you develop an idea, communicate musically with you in any capacity, whether on the input or output side, they can't do that. And realizing that and being a big fan of this tech early and saying, wait a minute, why has this not been prioritized? And I realize why that is. You know, there's a lot more wide-reaching sort of general purpose use cases that don't have to do with figuring out specific tools and specific sort of bits of language that need to be. Music is kind of in its own boat in terms of having something that, you know, we're working with, you know, with 11 Labs on our agent, and we can now press two buttons and have our agent be fully fluent in kind of like any language in the world. That's great. Once again, though, musical language is this rare beast where there's just like, it's not easy to solve for that. And it's funny, we kind of go between two moods, which is like, how has this not been built yet? And oh yeah, this is really hard to build. You know what I mean? Optimizing for real time is a huge challenge, but I just continue to come from the perspective that is, eventually we're going to look back at this time and think about, like, in the same way that we can look back and think about, Alex, like you just said, early internet days and stuff, and be like, remember when everybody had dial-up? Like, remember when AI was first coming along and everyone was still waiting and wishing for that personalized UX UI that I firmly believe will eventually be in everything. Why would any, whether it's Google Sheets, whether it's your notes, whether it's your digital audio workstation, why would you not want that to eventually know your proclivities and not have to sort of re-explain yourself every time? Just open it up and feel like you're picking right back up based on where you left. I don't know about you guys, my entire life these days lives inside ChatGPT projects, right? Let me start up a new project. Let me set a couple ground rules that are going to be specific to this project. Let me add some files that are going to be re-injected into the prompts every time I sort of start a new conversation in that project, right? So that's clearly working. OpenAI is clearly one of the biggest companies in the world right now, and I'm sure will be for some time. Let's identify something that hopefully, you know, when GPT-5 comes out, when these new products come out, we can still have and hold on to and know that even if something gets so advanced eventually where you could essentially ask ChatGPT to spin you up a musical agent in real time, the amount of sort of headaches and speed bumps we've hit along the way, optimizing for real time one, but also being able to parse and respond musically in real time, we just don't see it. I think our moat, if nothing else, is how challenging it is to create MIDI tools. MIDI is the language of music, essentially. Create MIDI tools that will reliably provide a response that is as good, if not better, than a skilled human version of what we're trying to create. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you always want something that's hyper focused on the thing that you're doing. So, I mean, like, yeah, like you said, you know, pretty soon maybe ChatGPT will be able to come out with something that, you know, can help you along that way. But you guys are just going to be hyper focused on that one idea. So your product's going to be, you know, way more sophisticated or focused on that one problem. So it's just going to be that much better. Yeah.
yeah, I think there's two things there. Like we fully expect, you know, even the leaders in the AI music realm right now, Suno, Udio, some of these companies, if they aren't working on an agent, they're crazy right now with all the money they've raised and how well they're doing with revenues and stuff. They'd be crazy. Coming from the perspective that I come from and having spent the last 13 years having a direct to consumer connection with my band's audience, that kind of is the core of the social media era of artists and musicians, right? I mean, a lot of our early collaborations that did huge things for us were literally us responding to Twitter replies of our fans saying, tagging two artists, us and another artist, and saying, you guys should collab. Like, that's the era that we're in here. And I think bringing the perspective of sort of how to approach things, whether marketing, whether UI, UX, as an actual musician who's had a chance to do this on one hand, I think is gonna be increasingly valuable to us on that side, as well as just like going through and making sure, again, like we're starting to work with ML engineers a little more on how to actually get this thing to think and provide responses like a great collaborator would, and hopefully not have the legal battles that, again, Suno and Udio right now are being subpoenaed they're being audited on their training data. And it's a big problem because it's the Wild West still, right? They literally are, it's coming out more and more. Midjourney, I just saw today, just got hit with a big one as well. These guys are training their models on anything and everything under the sun. And that's, I guess, it's a testament to how amazing this tech is when you can train a model on anything you want and it'll provide incredible results. But as the legal framework, I think, gets increasingly firmed up around this stuff, there's going to be an increasing need for, here's the way I think about it. Sure, it makes total sense that if I'm Suno and I was just subpoenaed to show my training data, whoops, there's an entire Lady Gaga album, in there that I just dropped into my neural net or whatever. That's an issue. However, how can you litigate when I get in the writing room with a fantastic co-writer, right? When I get in there and I'm in a writing session, and we pull up Spotify together, me and this writer that I'm working with, and I play something that I've been listening to. Let's use Lady Gaga again. That latest Lady Gaga tune's a banger. Like the low end and the drums in this Lady Gaga tune are incredible. There's no way, nor should there ever be a way, to litigate against that, because I'm, as a human, playing something on Spotify, listening to it, and with my collaborator in the room, we're kind of making critical decisions together based on being inspired by something, right? James Cameron had a great piece that went out recently where he was like, guys, everybody chill out about the legal stuff. We are all models with a shitty 4-pound flesh computer upstairs that is okay and has been trained based on what we've experienced in our lives. But here's tech where he essentially was saying, if we're going to litigate that much against this stuff, he said, Avatar's gone. All my best works are gone, because those are direct results of the things that have inspired me most in my life. So I think about that, and I think about us wanting to build something that essentially we can build to be a fantastic listener and have the same critical ear that a great musician would. I had an interview with someone a couple months back, and he said, is Mira going to tell you when your idea sucks? And that was a big moment for me. That was right around the time too where, what's the word, where OpenAI was dealing with ChatGPT being too sort of supportive, or too like, you're the master and like whatever you say rules, and anything you want, I'm going to respond to that. Eventually we want to get to a point here where ego's out of the room, just like a great songwriting session, right? And like you can actually tell you, based on how much you've worked with her, this idea, like, Joel, this idea is bad. Like, let's go with my idea. Trust me on this one. You want to have that kind of pushback. That's a core part of the creative process. And again, I don't think that's wholly represented yet. And Alex, to your point there, I think OpenAI, ChatGPT will forever be, until something else comes along, these sort of like catch-all one-stop shop, right? You can show up and do, and it's incredible, the tools that are there. But talking of agents and talking of specialized use cases, I think there's huge value in creating something that someone can go, sure, OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Gemini, whatever it is home. But if you're going to something where you want to sort of travel away from that and go to your specific thing that is your musical companion, you want that to almost be a separate thing, because like I even get lost. I just mentioned ChatGPT projects. I even get lost just trying to find my way through the 5 of them that I started last week, right? And yes, sure, infinite memory and infinite context are quickly arriving and becoming a baseline requirement. But again, I think to have something that is that dedicated experience where as soon as you jump in and you press start a new conversation with Mira and you hear her voice, you know that you're just picking right back up where you left off. She doesn't need to go through and try to parse through the other trillion combos that you had, asking about, I don't know, which band-aids to buy, or which, you know what I mean? Like help me put my grocery list together. Like, great, keep all that to your Gen Pop LLM experience. If you want to have this personalized experience where this thing literally knows your wants and needs as a musical artist better than you do, a true second brain approach, that is what I think we're starting to see more and more of as sort of agentic tech gets better. And I think you hear it a lot. I mean, the CEO of Box, Aaron Levy, is like this all day long. He's just bull posting on Twitter about how much agents are going to change everything, right? And like, I think we need to build that. And you see more and more happening with that. But again, the more that we go on this journey, the more that we see no one really prioritizing the actual journey of music and people wanting to learn and create music as the way that it's always been. Back to Suno and Udio. Anyone with no skill can jump on there and type a text prompt in and receive, honestly, a shockingly excellent result. They can write some random lyrics with an LLM, upload them in there, and receive a response that would shock you and is like deeply upsetting to these some of these like legendary musicians right now that are like putting petitions together and being like, how dare this tech show up and try to sort of dethrone us and everything. I love seeing that, because whenever you see that much pushback from the sort of like previous generations kind of kings and queens, you know something awesome is happening. That's the kind of the epitome of a paradigm shift to me, right? Is like there's that great pushback initially. What's the steps? It's like first you deny it, you hate it, eventually you sort of embrace it, right? When it hits that point of being undeniable and everybody and their grandma sees their own personal use case for it, it's like, okay, we're finally there. That's where we're going to get with this stuff. And you know, back to the legal battle stuff too, all that sort of stuff with these sort of one-stop shop text to finished song models. They have all the money in the world, you know, that they'll figure it out. But we view what we're doing and trying to solve for one of the biggest issues right now in music, and getting new people that are excited about music into music, is the total decline in like public school music education. We've dug into the data on all this stuff. That has just been in a sharp decline for the past couple decades, since I had a chance to have a great introduction to music and be sitting on a drum kit when I was in grade 6 here in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. Like, that is unfortunately in sharp decline as sort of STEM has been sort of increasingly prioritized and arts programs have been deprioritized. You essentially need to be part of the upper 15-20% of income classes to afford a private lesson these days. And that assumes that private lesson teacher is going to be a total personality match, a total teaching match, and sort of be that perfect answer to you, which again is a total variable. A lot of people will beg their parents to take lessons. Their parents will do it. Their parents will pony up that around $3,000 American a year for a 60-minute private lesson once a week. And 2 lessons in, the personalities just aren't driving, and that person is completely turned off of what could otherwise be an incredible and super enriching musical journey. Again, looking at all that stuff, identifying a market of hundreds of millions of people who couldn't afford that otherwise, and looking at sort of pricing our product somewhere between 1/10 and 1/20 the cost of that $3,000 a year. In addition to being able to say, this thing is going to teach you whatever you want, it's going to help you create whatever you want, and it's going to become increasingly attuned to the pace of your learning and where you want to head. You're going to feel that with every new interaction. That's something pretty exciting. And everyone we've had a chance to kind of pitch that to and show increasing versions of what we've been building and sort of get into our beta groups has been really, really, really excited about that. So despite the fact that the big guys aren't doing this yet, we are really motivated and hope to be one of the first, if not the first, to actually release to the world a real-time music voice agent that can communicate in musical language, which again has not, to our knowledge, been achieved otherwise yet.
Well, I think your advantage too is like you mentioned about the resistance to new things, and then once everybody catches up and everyone, it basically gets delivered to the masses. Like right now, for even how long AI has been out, I mean, I think there's still a bunch of, I think the vast majority of people are still resisting it a little bit. And then you have right now, Heat, anyone else that's really trying to get into AI is that early adopter still technically, I think. So you're going to have a huge advantage adopting it now until it becomes mainstream. So if you guys can get, ahead of the ball game, I think that's going to be like monumental to your guys' growth.
And back to moat, right? I think like there's, if anything, especially if we're getting into an era of vibe coders here and the ideas guy, I love the Rick Rubin stuff. If we're getting into that era, which we certainly are, what is our moat? Our moat is being able to try, like you just said, Alex, trying to get out in front of some of these bigger guys and bring users in and create this wonderful special connection with them. Music is a very emotional thing for people, right? Their heart is so tied to it. And even if you're not a performer or an aspiring artist yourself, the music that you love, right? I've looked at all the data for this stuff. Like people have these like flashbulb life moments that they can attribute the music they were listening to at that time. It's amazing, right? We want to get in and capture users early, so that the more they work with Mira, the more they feel this crazy connection to our agent. And by the time, let's say Apple or Native Instruments or Ableton or Pro Tools, whatever, releases their version of a musical agent, our users are going to be highly disincentivized to move away, because their entire personalized knowledge base around Mira lives within our backend, right? And that can't be transferred. And that's something that I think the takeover of agentic tech, that is one of the biggest things. I mentioned Aaron Levy from Box. He talks about that a lot too. It's like, make a great agent, get users in, nail your UI and UX, and they will never leave. especially if you have a product that's recursive and adjusting itself in real time and holding on to some of the kind of most important points that it's gleaning from these people. I was talking to our soon to join our company ML guy about like actually being able to tap certain things like the emotional tone of a user's voice and using that to actually predict what a user might want to go that day. If you, let's say you just broke up with your girlfriend and you fire up Mira and you say she's going to be able to tell that you're sad and give you suggestions based on sort of that tone. And it's like, that's pretty incredible, man, that we're getting into this level of intuitiveness and sort of like intuition, I guess is it would be the word, but like that's what's available here. So really, I think if anybody can eventually make a great product, like back to like sort of just straight up agency and how committed are you to eating all the glass, chewing all the glass involved to getting a product out to market and actually making it happen. And we certainly are. And I think we see increasing motivation as we keep going here. And this is like way before us potentially receiving investment, potentially starting to talk to like giant music gatekeepers, right? Like I'm directly connected to a lot of major labels and a lot of serious artists and stuff that at the right time here, when we have that holy shit version of our product ready to go, I think are going to be really amazed by this. And I think we're in for a couple watershed moments here where the floodgates really open, and we're just still really trying to grind to make sure that that first impression is everything, and we can really nail it on the outset here to bring as many users in as possible and really kind of solidify our name as one of the first big movers and shakers in AI music that isn't just sort of text to finish song. It's like, no. Do you want to go on the Do you want to learn the guitar? Do you want to become a singer? Okay, Mira's going to spin up a curriculum in real time and walk you down that path. Do you want Mira to be your perfect co-writer? Do you want her to come up with an idea? Do you want to sing something to her that you can develop and then add a drum beat to it and add a bass line to it and go back and forth like a great collaborative experience? That's what we're building as well. It's kind of like this two-pronger, right? It's like the education side is number one because it's the most glaring area, but the collaborative side is just as important as well. Our kind of three pillars are teach, test, and collaborate, right? Teaching being core, being able to being tested on what you've been taught so that you can prove that it's actually stuck, and then going one step further and actually being able to apply that in a collaborative sense is kind of the three-step thing here we're looking to offer.
I mean, obviously, you being a musician, we don't have to really connect the dots too hard to see what the inspiration was for Mira. But like, was there anything in your background or that happened during like your career or things that you came across for like the influence or like kind of the reason behind why you wanted to create Mira?
Man, I would just say that there's like a lot of inefficiencies that get lost in the sort of romantic side of trying to make and learn music. I think there's a lot of time that, I mean, we're talking about getting into the time of like the most time, this is the most time saving era of humanity ever with some of this tech, right? So that's at a certain point, that's a given. But the amount of time that I've spent in writing sessions it's like an 8-hour day where you're in there and you're laying on the floor, you're looking up at the ceiling, trying to get bad ideas back and forth and everything. It's like, that's great. And that's some of our favorite, all of us here in this call, our favorite albums and songs have been made that way. That's great. But I guess the answer is that like, there's a better way. And it's something that we've been talking about this, something that will eventually be undeniable to the masses. If it's undeniable to you as the person sort of steering the ship, that's where that edge comes in and that's where that advantage comes in, right? So I think that really it's just a matter of me seeing the potential in the tech, having some personal relatability to some of the pain points that I've encountered working with collaborators. Talk about a personality mismatch. You know, you're in a week of writing sessions and your time is valuable, and you get in the room on a Tuesday, maybe your second session of the week, and 45 minutes in, you're like, this is not really the vibe. Like we're not gelling at all here. But you try to, 9 times out of 10, you're going to try to make it through that session and get something decent. I just think about, it'll be cool to get to a point where I can compare, and maybe we market around this, right? Like we show like a split screen of like a conventional writing session where it's two people in there having a hard time. Then it's me with Mira and we're on like, song 5 by the end of the day, right? Like I think efficiency like that is been one of the biggest drivers. And again, having that personal experience of having 13, 15, going on 20 years on my musical journey here of different pain points and saying, this tech can help us truly solve this and really and keep the human in the loop is another important part of this, right? Like again, back to Suno and UDO, the human isn't really needed there. You can kind of like make the case that those companies are looking to replace the musician, replace the songwriter altogether. What we're building here relies entirely on the human in the loop and is just kind of bringing some of the best parts of this tech to the table.
Nice. All right. Well, cool. I mean, that's awesome. So what do you think? So like moving forward, short term, long term, more
Yeah.
probably short term, because we already kind of talked about your long term.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, what's your vision for Mira in kind of that short term?
So we're getting into increasing test group sizes. We, as of actually right after this, I'm going to be releasing a bit of content that officially announces the achievement of our first musical output features. So huge unlock for us, just going through the process of starting with Mira's conversational abilities and just getting that in a spot, and then starting to introduce these MIDI tools, and then now we can actually exemplify those via musical outputs. So I can actually launch Mira now and ask her to play chord progressions, scales, melodies, this sort of stuff. Huge unlock for us. So that's something that we're going to be getting into a new beta group very soon. What happens on the other side of that, once we're in a spot with output, is input, right? So Mira actually being able to listen to a melody that I'm humming, a drum beat that I'm beatboxing, stuff like that, right? So once we get output in a spot, input comes next, and then it's about just getting the most out of those two. In addition to obviously the other side of things that we hadn't talked a lot about yet is when a new user first launches Mira, they're going to go through this onboarding UX that is going to create a profile for them so that their first conversation with Mira already knows their name. She already knows their skill level. She already knows where they generally want to head, and she's going to ask some questions that are going to help her narrow down on that. So I guess really three things. Go ahead.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you give us, that was actually going to be one of my next
Okay.
questions for like layman's terms. If I have no music abilities right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
give me like a case study, almost like
Great.
an exact like run through of like what you see Mira doing. Like if it's going to be me picking up a guitar or my son wanting to learn the saxophone or whatever
Okay.
it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Give me like kind of
let's
like
use
that
guitar.
progression.
Sure. So yeah, so you're a new user. You just fired up Mira for the first time. You're gonna get some sort of like it's gonna be some sort of click through options on what's your name or username. What do you want to be called by Mira? What is your musical skill level and experience? You're gonna have a chance to articulate that. Let's just use an example of someone saying 0. I'm coming in from nothing here. That's a very important point because that is going to tell Mira that beyond everything else, starting with things as simple as technique, musical technique, right? With the guitar, how you hold the guitar, right? The correct stuff for that, as well as getting a grasp on music theories. Understanding what keys are, what a key signature is, how notes are related, how harmony, right? The chord side of things and melody, the sort of singular note side of things are combined and how they can come together, starting really slowly with that and being able to kind of create a curriculum that becomes visualized for that user so that right from that first interaction they can have that foresight and say, okay, yes, I'm a brand new user, yes, I'm someone who's always wanted to learn the guitar, who's never been able to. Okay, cool. This week, we're going to work on basic guitar technique and basic music theory. If I can achieve those things and sort of jump through the hoops, next week, we're going to get into sort of a level 2 version of that where we're actually going to start to play through a couple of very simple things. And Mira is going to quiz me on some very basic musical intervals, let's say, right? So really starting to climb that ladder and see the progress week after week kind of thing. And again, all this stuff, we don't need to go week by week. If the user would rather go day by day or month by month, whatever they want to do, that's another part of the benefit of this is that it's not like, okay, we got to hop in the car and drive to our weekly music lesson. It's like, it's entirely up to the pace of learning that user wants to put forth. And again, if they're going to put a lot of effort into that, they're going to see a lot of that come right back to them in their user experience based on if you put hours and hours a week into Mira, she has that much more opportunity to sort of comb through the data she's gleaning from you and adjust your curriculum accordingly and move you along that musical path more quickly, right? So it's truly, we think we're creating something here where for the musical minded person, going to bed and waking up in the morning and being excited to work on more music stuff, picking back up and actually feeling like Mira is a little more intuitive than she was yesterday. That's a core part of our value prop here, right? So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I guess a TLDR version would more be, even if you know nothing about music and you're just a fan who wants to learn, you can mention that to Mira right away. She's going to create a profile around that right away. And you're going to feel her on your first conversation with her, meet you right there and say, hey, I know you don't have much experience with this. Sounds like you're a fan of music. I know you have a guitar. Let's start off simple. Let me turn on my vision here. Let's see how you hold the guitar. Let's go through a few really basic exercises to make sure that we're starting off on the right foot with your technique. And then on the actual music theory side, let's get into some very simple stuff around key signatures and simple chords and simple intervals to really start to plant some seeds here that Mira is going to be able to test you on as you go, at the end of each lesson to make sure that she's not moving too quickly or too slow, right?
I've always wanted to learn how to play the guitar, so I'll be a customer for sure there.
That's great. A lot of people say, oh, I want to be a singer, and it's like,
Yeah.
we're starting to, even though we're not fully into the development of our input recognition features yet, we're starting to identify some toolkits that are going to allow us to like we might even eventually want to have a breakout version of Mira that is just Mira the vocal coach, right? That's able to identify how on pitch someone is singing. Just it's in the same way, Mira the rhythm trainer. If you're not even just a drummer, one of the most important elements of being a good musician is what's called time feel, right? Your ability to play something in the pocket, right? Really groovy and really sort of like it's like nailed. We've thought about these sort of module versions of Mira that focus just on those things, but again, based on data driven all the way. There's a lot of people who want to learn to be a singer. There's a lot of people who want to have a really good time feel. We'll kind of, just like anything else here, we'll sort of adapt to that as we go and as we sort of identify our users' biggest wants and needs. But just what you said, man, you're a perfect example of someone saying, I'm a music lover. I've always wanted to do this. I have not found the right approach to get there. You are why we're building this. It's great that there's musical virtuosos out there that will be able to use Mira and blow the world away, but I'm a lot more excited about the hundreds of millions of people who either can't afford access to good music education and or have never found the right sort of path to actually get there, and maybe have even tried several times to get there and been super disincentivized by what their experience was. We're building this for them. We want the musical journey to be available to everyone in the world.
Well, and not even that too. I think one of the most appealing things that you just mentioned or whatever was more of that like time aspect. So not having to jump in the car, not having to invest an hour and a half into coaching if I only have 15 minutes. I mean, that's even a good enough time to pick up a guitar and, learn a couple chords or do whatever you need to do and not have to feel like, okay, I need an hour investment to do this. So,
That's a really good point that I'm going to make a note of as soon as we're done this call. It's like, hey Mira, I know we're supposed to do an hour today. I've only got 15. Adjust what we're going to work on today in real time so that we're working on the highest priority stuff, knowing that I only have 15 minutes. That's yet another thing that is so available to us with this tech that is a perfect example of like a real world use case where people are busy, right? People have lots going on. You should be able to be upfront about that and voice that to your agent so that they can adjust things in real time according to that. So like that's, yeah, man.
um, okay, well, awesome. I mean, anything else that you can kind of think about that's really that we didn't cover that is super important to kind of what you guys are doing with Mira or even maybe some other ventures that you guys are doing on the side?
Yeah, I would just say, visit us at intelligentobjects.io. Definitely, Instagram right now is our biggest sort of regular content output place to see kind of where we're at with things. And on our website, you can sign up to be part of future beta groups. That's hugely helpful. We're targeting, like I mentioned, everyone across the musical map, right? It's great to talk to musical buddies of mine and get them in our test groups, but it's just as valuable to get people like yourself in there to really make sure we're sort of putting the right emphasis in the right areas right now as we continue development. Yeah, I just think we're committed to being part of the reason why the masses view this tech as not evil, right? I mean, it's who knows what's going to happen eventually with this stuff. Are we going to go too far? It's not really part of the human nature to slow the rate of progression for our safety. We usually kind of fuck up first and then fix it after. So that's scary. Of course it is. There's lots of scary stuff about this tech. That's another reason why we're trying to focus on a purely positive application of tech here, something that almost everyone has a deep connection to in music, and show the world that, hey, this tech can be used for pure good and pure positivity. If we can accomplish that and even get a small group of folks to recognize that this is a great thing that actually, once again, keeps the human in the loop as we enter this era of people thinking, is my job going to be here a year from now? Keeping the human in the loop and giving people that purely positive sort of example is something that we are not going to quit until we achieve. Check out what we're doing and be a part of it. Please do. Please visit us at intelligentobjects.io, Instagram.com/intelligentobjects, and come and be a part of the journey. We're super excited about this. There's no one else building something like this, and that's a pretty wild thing to be able to say, getting into the era of anybody being able to have an idea and toss it into an LLM and create something. So will that be the case next week? Who knows? But right now, we're the only one doing it, and we're very excited. Yeah, great to have a chance to articulate it a little more for you, Matt.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome, dude.
That's it.